Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. No, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that no more. Just gonna get into this video. I was trying to give you guys some scenery. This is all we got right now because everything else was not working out. Also, I apologize for you guys hearing my dog. He's just not having it with me right now, and I guess that's just that on that. Let's go ahead and get our coffee or whatever you want to drink and get into this. Just because God has given you the promise, that does not mean you're not gonna have to fight, okay? That does not mean that you're not gonna have to go to war. Although the battle is rigged, the Lord God Almighty has already won and gotten the victory for us. That does not mean you're not gonna have to fight. God has had me thinking about the children of Israel and how he has delivered them from Egypt, from the hands of Pharaoh, right? And as I was just thinking and going over the story by reading it in the book of Exodus, I instantly paused and I was just like, wait a minute. Moses didn't make it into the promised land. Moses didn't make it into the promised land. Not only just that, but there were some of the children of Israel who did not make it into the promised land. And so many times you do not hear a lot of people talking about that. You hear them talking about how the Israelites got freed. You hear them talk about how the Lord told Moses to tell Pharaoh, let my people go. You hear about the milk and honey, right? You hear about all the goodness, but you don't hear a lot about the fact that there was a generation who did not make it into the promised land, as well as Moses. And I said, wait a minute, God, I don't want to be freed from somewhere, not to just get the gift that you've given me. I hope that's making sense. I want to be freed. Like, I don't want you to not free me. Let me just make that clear. I don't want to only be freed from the trouble, not to obtain the life that you gave me. I don't want to be free, let's just say from, I don't know what I'm gonna say from, because I don't want to spread my business yet. My testimony is coming though. Y'all put your own thing to it, but you know what I'm trying to say. I don't want to be freed from Egypt to be stuck in the wilderness. Bars. I don't want to be freed from Egypt to die in the wilderness. I want to be freed from Egypt, go through my wilderness, the shedding off of the Egyptian culture, the shedding off of the things obtained by being in sin, right? Not to obtain what God has for me. So as I was thinking about that, I was just like, Moses saw a bush that was not being burnt up, spoke to God, risked his life so many times going back and forth to go see Pharaoh, even though the Lord did say he got him. Did all the things that the Lord told him to do to allow the people to go free, just to not make it in. So you mean to tell me I was literally God's spokesperson and I didn't make it in? Ever. But in all seriousness, guys, I don't want to die in my wilderness. I don't want to miss the mark. I don't want you to die in your wilderness. I want for all of us to be able to obtain the victory that the Lord God has for us. I want us to be able to live a life of abundance. And when I say a life of abundance, I'm not talking about cars, clothes, houses. I'm not talking about that. I am talking about actually living the God-given purpose that the Lord has given onto us. Right? So let's really dive in. The book of Deuteronomy, that is kind of hard to say, y'all. Say it fast, like 5 times. Book of Deuteronomy, after the children of Israel has been wandering for 40 years, we already know that what was supposed to take 40 days took 40 years. They finally got to the place where they were looking over, like they were looking into the land that the Lord had promised them, right? And they decided to send 12 scouts to go scout the land. And when the 12 scouts came back, they gave a good report. they said the land was exactly what the Lord God Almighty has said. But 10 of those spies gave not only a good report, but instilled fear into the people. Stated how there were giants on the land. Their wall was as big as the heavens. Moses said, nah, go and obtain the land that the Lord has given unto you. Remember what I said in the beginning, that although God has said that something was yours, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be a fight to obtain that promise. Though God has kept them for those 40 years, has fed them, provided for them, clothes did not tattered in those 4 years, grew in number. I keep saying 4 years. Y'all know I'm trying to say 40. They did not trust God. So how many of us are at the edge of a breakthrough, been delivered, we have gone through our wilderness, and we're at the edge of our breakthrough, but we're not trusting God enough to actually give us what it is that he has said was promised to us? How many of us it's our mouth that is keeping us from our promise? How many of us it's the fact that we don't feel like we are worthy or good enough for what God has promised? Allowing procrastination, allowing laziness, murmuring, or complaining to keep us from our promised land. What is your Egypt? Your Egypt could have been drugs, men, women. Your Egypt could have been fornication, lying, whatever your Egypt was or is, not is, because we've been deliberate. In that phase of transition is allowing the enemy to talk us out of the promise that the Lord God has for us. God commanded his children to obtain the land that he promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but the people refused. How do you think God felt when finally they were able to obtain the land and they refused? Saying that God wasn't a good God and they felt like God hated them. He's listened to them complain. He has saved them from Egypt. They have seen all of the wonders of the Lord, walked on dry land just for them to refuse to go into that land, just because they didn't want to fight, just because they didn't want to do what the Lord has said because of fear. And God didn't give us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. What comes to my mind is the movie The Lion King. We're going to fast forward to when Simba is grown. Father came in the sky saying, remember who you are. He went back to Pride Rock. Yes, I know the movie. He fought, although Pride Rock belonged to him. Pride Rock was his birthright. He still had to fight his enemy, still had to fight his uncle. As sad as that might sound. And some of y'all got some people in y'all family that y'all need to, but we won't go there. We won't touch it. But back to what I was saying. He had to go back and fight the enemy for what belonged to him by birthright. Even after he has fought, he had to still claim his seat. Monkey, I believe his name was Rafiki. He said, it is time. Y'all know I gotta joke around, but nah, for real. He said, it is time. And after he said, it is time, you know, that little plank, he had to go walk up there. That and it was raining and all that. And when he got to the top, that's when all the animals was shouting and praising and was excited. Because not only did he have to fight for what was already his, he had to go and claim it. That is what the Lord is wanting us to do. But the children of Israel did not do that. It's not the complaining that they did because they didn't have no food, because they didn't have no water, making that idol. And some of y'all got some idols. We won't get into that right now, but we will. It was the fact that when they got to the cusp of obtaining the promised land, they refused. God at that time decreed and declared that they will not enter into the promised land. It was Moses' generation, ages 20 and up, did not make it. How serious is it to know that you left Egypt, wandered for 40 years, and then the Lord said, no, that's a scary place to be. In a place where I never want to be. In a place where I never want you guys to be. Moses didn't even make it in. And although you guys, the battle is rigged and we win through Jesus Christ at the end of the day, There's still a war going on. And we still have to fight. Daily, we have to pick up our cross. We have to put on the full armor of the Lord God Almighty. Daily. This is a daily thing. It also reminds me of that old time song that says, one day at a time, dear Jesus. That's all I'm asking. Either one day at a time or one step at a time. But it's one of those stuff at a time, dear Jesus. Just give me the strength to do every day what I have to do. Yesterday's gone, dear Jesus, and tomorrow may never be mine. When the Israelites realized their error, they went to go try to fight, even though God wasn't with them anymore. And guess what happened? They got beat senseless. They got whipped. Because God said, no, you will no longer have the promised land. God allowed them to return back into the wilderness until all of that generation was gone, was dead. But you know what that makes me also think of? God gave the other generation rising up a glimpse. Sometimes God will give you a glimpse of the promise that he has for you. And so he gave that other generation a glimpse of what their reward is. Listen, if you're not in the will of the Lord God Almighty, you will not succeed. Once all of that generation of Moses passed, they were able to rise up with full authority and claim their land that the Lord God has given unto them. Do not be like the murmuring Israelites who saw the wonders of the Lord God Almighty, see the promised land and not obtain it. Let that not be you. Let that not be me. Do not refuse the promise that the Lord God has for you because you don't want to fight the enemy. We are in a war. Yes, you're going to have to fight, but the battle has already been won. Until next time, you guys, hopefully I'll have some more stuff going on, but bye.